Hello everyone and welcome to another video with me, 320 Sim Pilot, and today we're taking our first review onto the channel. This time it is a review of the SmoothTrack app by John Goering, who provided the app kindly for us to review in this video today. The app allows you to use head tracking to look around in various simulators and other applications and games on PC, just by moving your head around with your phone pointed at you, and I'll explain a little bit more about how it works in just a moment. All the footage you see today will be of me using the app to look around in various simulators, and as I said, it works in quite a few. The app is available on the Google Play Store, although requires Google AR services to work on an Android device, and it's available on the Apple Store with iOS 13 required. The prices you see in those screen grabs are not quite accurate. Those are just on a sale price. I believe it normally retails at £9.99 in the UK, various prices in other countries, and we'll talk about the value later on. As you can see, it allows you to just look around quite freely on the flight deck, as you can see me doing here, which is a really interesting experience when you first get to try it. Here's a footage of John trying it himself, and on the right you can see the screen of the phone overlaid. So it shows you how the AR puts its axes onto your face using the AR features of the device, and then it sends that to another app, which I'll show you shortly, on your computer to translate it into head movement. Very similar to how Track IR works. So it is an alternative to Track IR, certainly. So in this clip, I'm again using it to look around, and what I'll do is I'll bring up the software the app talks to. So you'll also need the freeware OpenTrack software, which is what I have shown here now with the octopus, and this shows you the signal that is being received from the phone app, and then it's translated into the game, and it works with any game that accepts the Track IR system or input, as it were. So as you can see, as I look up and around, I can even rotate my head left and right, or tilt my head you could say, and I get a reaction in the game. This obviously provides you with a lot more freedom. You have more axes with which you can move your head or camera around in the flight deck, as well as being able to do things like this and move your head around to get some viewpoints that you would only really get if you actually sat in the actual aircraft. But these are views we get to see. You lean forward sometimes, put your head against the window. Those windows are very warm, by the way, heated very nicely, so when your hands get cold in flight, they are quite convenient. So who is this app for? Well, it's going to work well with anyone who is going to need some sort of movement, freedom of movement of their camera, essentially PC simulator enthusiasts mostly. Flight simulators it works very well with, but not exclusively, and it works with many different flight simulators as well. So here I'm in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, of course. It also works in FSX, it works in Plane11, as we'll see later in the video, Digital Combat Simulator, and some others, Euro Truck Simulator 2, Kerbal Space Program, and there are many apps out there that do use this sort of system for inputting head movement, so it's really convenient that it works so easily with so many of them. Installation is relatively simple, although it will take a bit of fine tuning once you get it up and running, which I will show you shortly. There is a video on the developer's website which is incredibly useful and shows you how to get the app set up in the first place on your device, and then also connected to your computer through the network. It connects using a wireless network if you want, so I don't have to plug in my phone or anything like that. It just connects through my local network into the computer, and then the OpenTrack software, which is what has that little octopus on it, can then get the signal. And as I said, the guide makes it really simple to set up, so I had no issues there. Something to watch out for is you have to end up allowing it through a firewall. So although even if you disable it through Microsoft Firewall, you may have your own software. So I have McAfee Internet Security, so I had to make sure that it was allowed through that as well. Now let's have a look at some of these settings in the app. So here we have the yaw. As you can see, I've adjusted the yaw, and you can fiddle with these curves in the OpenTrack software. This is all done through the software, although you can also do it in the app on your phone, but I found it easier through the software. This is software developed not by John, it's developed by another developer. It's been around for a while, but it's freeware. So as you can see, I've adjusted the curves to try and make it a little less sensitive in the middle on yaw and pitch. I found that worked best for me, give me some stability when you're looking straight ahead, but then also slightly oversensitive at the sides, because of course you don't want to have to turn your head 90 degrees to the right to actually look 90 degrees to the right in the sim, or you'll obviously be looking at your wall or out your window and not through your screen. So you want small head movements to be able to turn the app slightly further than that. It does a great job, and certainly for pitch and yaw, I use that a lot, and you set limits like I have there. You can see where I can't pitch further than that. The octopus stops moving, even though I'm only actually looking just at the top of my screen. So that's very convenient. For roll, it doesn't actually matter too much because you rarely use it, and by rolling your head, or tilting I suppose you could call it, you're not really going to lose sight of the screen. So it's very customizable. You can set it just as if you're used to setting axes curves on your joysticks in simulators. This should be no problem for you to get used to. Some information about how I am running this app. I'm using iOS 14, the latest Apple iOS, on an iPhone 11, and I've connected it to a Windows 10 PC, which is obviously how I run my simulators. Sadly, as you can see, even in Microsoft Flight Simulator, you cannot look around more than just out the window, really. Otherwise, you just get the black box that you're sitting in. But there you go, some nice wing views anyway. So as I said, I'm using an iPhone and a Windows 10 PC, and I've had no issues at all. In fact, I find it surprisingly stable. The connection seems to work without me having to adjust anything, and I simply turn it on. I have to press start on the app, then you open SmoothTrack with the little octopus software and click start on that, and then open up the simulator in that order, and it seems to work every time. Now let's look at something which I think is slightly better use case for this app than airliners, to be honest with you, and that's just in my opinion. I like using it for slightly more aerobatic or scenic flying. I find in airliners, for me, because I have to hold my head completely still whilst I try and select switches, that it sometimes causes me a bit more inconvenience than I would like. It also doesn't work very well, in my opinion, for streaming, because obviously if I look to the side to look at comments or anything like that, then the camera would move, and I think it would be a bit of an issue for the viewers, or not very pleasant for a long time. But here it is at its best, I think. Aerobatic, scenic flying. We're over New York in the Cessna 152 Aerobat, and while I'm talking, we'll see some terrible aerobatic maneuvers from me as I attempt to do some loops and rolls over Central Park in New York. So what do I like about this app? Well, as I said, the setup is robust, and by that I mean once I've done the setup once, I have not had to fiddle with it or reconnect or do anything like that since I set up the app the first time, which has really impressed me, especially as it's using Wi-Fi networks and all sorts. The only thing I have noticed is you must open the app and the SmoothTrack software, press start on both, and then go and open your flight simulator of choice. Otherwise, it may not find it. To get it set up inside the simulators is also very simple, as they all treat it like track IR. So you simply tick a box, typically, as you have to in Plane11, which I'll show a bit later, or Flight Simulator, and DCS recognised it all on its own without any input from me, which I thought was really good. The tracking itself is smooth, and that is a great thing. It certainly lives up to its name of SmoothTrack, as you would hope it would. What I mean by smooth is it reliably translates your head movements in the games accurately and smoothly without sort of juddering too much between positions. Sometimes in some simulators you can get some stutter. It does occasionally happen. It's a particular problem if you lose the image on your phone, so if it loses sight of you, something like that. But it's amazingly good at not doing that, so it can keep you in frame and lets you get a good view out. It also allows you to recenter your position very easily. It always returns to neutral when you do, which is a really great feature. It just allows you to sit straight back in your chair at neutral, and you'll be back pointing forward in the flight deck, which is really handy. And I can't stress this enough. It's amazing how accurate the tracking is, considering it's just using your phone and sending the signal over a network. Now, just to prove it works, whilst I talk about some other things I like about this app, let's have a look at Plane11. So here we are in the Toliss A321 using the exact same app and the same settings. I've got the same settings for all of these, and all I've had to do is close Microsoft Flight Simulator and load up Plane11, and it just works. It's amazing how well it translates between different apps and programs as you work on them. So what else I like is that, considering there is no other equipment, it works incredibly well and is very reliable, which I was very impressed by. Obviously, some other alternatives are quite expensive, require setup, require extra equipment around your computer, and this does not. It can be easily tidied away at the end because you've just got to put your phone away. I mean, it's really great for that. And it also has a very reasonable buy-in price. So I will say I do think it's worth its price, just because it gives you so much functionality in so many simulators, with such ease of use. So yeah, it's great. And as you can see here, you get to have great fun looking around the flight decks in detail like you never could before, or certainly wouldn't bother with moving the camera system around. And these are views we do get to stick our heads, as I said earlier, right up and look around So yeah, it definitely adds to the immersion, although putting your head outside the window is perhaps a stretch too far. Now let's take a look at Digital Combat Simulator. Here we are about to fly a carrier recovery pattern, so basically a circuit to come and land in on an aircraft carrier in the F-14 by Heat Blur Simulations. So please don't laugh at my fighter jet piloting skills. They are lacking, as you can imagine, but let's have a look at some of the potential downsides of using this app. Now let's look at the cons of using this app. And there aren't many. I do generally think it's a really, really good product. What are some of the restrictions of using it though? Well, first of all is your phone placement. You have to put your phone right in front of you or somewhere in the near vicinity. It doesn't have to be square onto your face, although I find that's when it works best, when it's pointing straight at your face, which of course means it needs to be placed underneath or just above your monitor, something like that, which can be surprisingly difficult to get set up. So you'll need to arrange your desk in such a way that you can do this. So for me, I've put a grippy rubber case on my phone, and then it can sit up against the bottom of my monitor stand. So you'll definitely manage, but it's just something to be aware of. Secondly, you do still lose your battery whilst using this. So it's using Wi-Fi, it's using the cameras, so of course it does drain over time. Included is a mode where there's a little light bulb on the screen on the app. You press that and the screen goes very dim. So that's a great addition, and it does help with the battery life, but it does still drain over time. So if you're going to use this for long sim sessions, you're going to need to find some sort of power source. Not too difficult, I'm sure. These days monitors often have USB ports, or obviously your computer should have something nearby, but just something to be considerate of. Finally, there is some delay, so it is not instant. As you move your head left or right, there is ever so slightly a catch-up period. Now it's minute, you get used to it very quickly, but the downside of that is that if you are someone who suffers easily from motion sickness and you're sitting near to a big monitor, it could have an impact on you until you get used to it. A little bit, again, like using virtual reality. That's my closest comparison for the motion sickness. So if you find you're easily prone to motion sickness, then this could be something to consider. Still well worth trying, because I found that I got used to it very quickly and the delay is very minor. Here you can see me leaning forward to get a better view out the HUD just for the final stages of landing on the carrier. One of those things that's just instinctive when you have head tracking. You can just lean slightly forward in your seat and you get that better view. It just becomes second nature so quickly. I think for Digital Combat Simulator, it is an absolute game changer for me. I have to use it. It frees up my controls so I can use the other required buttons in the fighter jets, sort of the HOTAS style, but most importantly, it just gives me instant freedom of movement to look around and see what's going on. This clip is interesting to me because when I filmed this, I was using entirely the head tracking as normal, but I noticed when I play it back, it almost looks like I'm using a hat switch or something to look around, because you just get used to moving your head into these positions and holding it still enough, or the app seems to translate it well enough. And like I say, it's especially good in DCS. It seems the most responsive, and there's less camera sort of interference, I suppose. Probably something to do with my settings. You can fiddle with a lot of settings in these games to reduce camera smoothness and flowing. Things like G-force effects that can somehow impact the tracking of it. Another thing I use it for in DCS, obviously, is formation flying. You need to be able to look around and keep your head in a fixed position without having to reach around and use other controls. So yeah, it's just one of those things that I turn on every time I turn on DCS. So for the summary then, do please enjoy some footage of me amateur dogfighting as I pretend to be Maverick as I look around using the head tracking app. Do I think the app is worth it at full price? Yes, I do. It works very well. It is reliable. Although the setup is ever so slightly fiddly at first, it's not beyond the reach of anyone who is using one of these simulators in the first place, and then it's very robust and reliable after that. I've not had to do any fiddling with it since setting it up. It's absolutely game changing in certain apps depending on your preference, but I look forward to trying it out in many others as it is so widely compatible, which is a really great thing. I'm especially pleased with how easy it is to put away. It doesn't take any extra equipment. I don't have to wear anything on my face to use it. I just put the phone down in front of me and get going, which is incredibly convenient. Finally then, the one piece of advice I have to give is that it does not improve your Top Gun Maverick flying abilities, as you can see here when it all goes wrong for me in my F-14. So I'll let you enjoy my decision making as I decide at what point I'm going to abandon my jet and head down into the ocean on my parachute. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it's been useful for you. It's something slightly different for the channel. Do please let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you'd like to see more of this, of course, do please like and subscribe and let me know what you'd like to see different in future videos. Feedback is always appreciated. As ever, all that's left to say is thank you so much for taking the time to come and watch this video, and I look forward to seeing you again in another stream or video soon. Thank you, and bye bye.